I had it delivered. I ordered it during SBAC.
Wow, tough.
Allie, are you going to use your gavel?
I seriously want to. I think I'm going to. I think it's going to happen. Yeah. For all of you that are filtering in, they ordered me a gavel. Victoria ordered me a gavel. And it's engraved and it's really cool. So today I'm going to use the gavel. And I'm sorry if that's annoying, but it's going to happen.
That looks really cool.
Thank you. I'm very excited about it. A little bummed I can't use it in person. I'm going to give it until 7:01 for Caroline to let everyone in. So just bear with me really quickly, everyone. Cool. So this meeting is officially called to order. That's so cool. Okay. And we will begin. Caroline's going to take attendance, but we're going to begin with the minutes for the previous session. And Vivian, our parliamentarian, is going to explain to us a little bit about the fact that Robert's rules changed last week with regard to minute approval. So Vivian.
Hey guys. So basically we are still operating under the rules of the 11th edition of Robert's Rules of Order, but we will be abiding by section 41, number 9 through 11, and section 48, number 14 of the 12th edition, because those sections provide a more efficient minute approval method. So as you all know, Caroline sends out the minutes after Senate. So we all have plenty of time to read them before the Senate meeting next week. And because the minutes are all sent out in advance, we don't have to read them in Senate, but just so you all know, any member can request that they be read, and then Allie would read them all for us. So with this new process, basically what happens is that Allie will ask if anyone has any corrections to the minutes. If no one says anything, she will say, there being no corrections to the minutes are approved. If someone has a correction and there are no objections to the correction, then Allie will say, there being no further corrections to the minutes are approved. And the correction would then be implemented on the minutes by Caroline. After the minutes are approved, Caroline is going to put the word approved, the date that they were approved, and her initials on the copy of the minutes that is in the student government drive that we all have access to. And that way, you know, if you're looking at a copy of the minutes, that if there were any corrections, those have already been implemented on that copy. And that's basically how the new process works. I think it's pretty straightforward, but if after Senate anyone has any questions, always feel free to reach out to me and ask me any questions.
Thank you, Vivian. So with that, I'm not going to pull up the minutes. I do have them if anyone wants me to read them or pull them up, but assuming everyone has read the minutes, does anyone have any corrections to the minutes for last Senate? All right, there being no corrections, the minutes are approved. We can move then on to the next point of our agenda, which is going to be our executive reports. So starting with Mr. President Miles Middleton.
All right, so good evening, everybody. I'm Miles Middleton, Student Body President for those who don't know me. Just real quick things, just for College Game Day, I hope everybody had a great weekend. More importantly, stayed safe. Look, we're in week 4. I think we're doing pretty good. But obviously, again, I always bring this up, but if you have any concerns or any recommendations that we need to bring up, please give it to the necessary committee. And then secondly, give it to, if the committee can't figure it out or needs additional help, come to the appropriate exec member, which would probably be your Speaker of the House, and then to myself if you need any assistance with anything. So just on that point, President's Leadership Conference, Drew has more to report on that, but most importantly, we just have a bunch of meetings going on then. We'll probably facilitate that back to you all about our progress and where we're at. That's more so for the co-chairs. And then we did get a response from Dee Dee Johnston about faculty and staff, insurance plans, health plans, but most importantly about the COVID-19 testing. So from there, we're going to pass off that information off to physical planning and see if we can get another meeting on the books, especially with Mr. Wise, to talk that over and try to break down what the next steps should be going forward. I know in our cabinet meeting on Sunday, somebody brought up the concern of sneeze safe and that there's no kind of accountability measures if you don't do it. So I know the campus life committee or the physical planning committee, I think, or both of you all are working on that to kind of talk about what kind of accountability measures are there for not doing sneeze safe, if there are any, and what can they do to implement steps like that. And then the last point, so I wasn't here this weekend and I saw some things circulating on social media, but in regards to, I think it was an article written by the OGB about a president's rally this weekend that happened. I understand that there was a lot of confusion about that and what's kind of the gist of that. And I definitely don't want to leave student government out of the mix because I know that you all will probably get questions first. So we're going to get more information on that, then facilitate that information back to you all because I definitely don't want to leave you out in the dirt with that one because that's a really tough one and really one of the really situations that we all need to be up on, definitely going forward. So just on that point, I just want to make sure everybody knows that we're going to figure out what really happened there and what's the situation and give that back to you all because I believe in transparency and all that. So if anybody has any questions, pending any questions, that's my report.
Any questions for Miles's report? You can feel free to come off mute. Any questions for Miles? All right, then we will move on. Thank you, Miles. So for my report tonight, I'm just going to remind you all that our freshman election season is happening now. Tonight is the candidates meeting right after Senate. So just know that all of exec and the 2 judiciary co-chairs are going to be spending their time this week doing that, though we are still here, obviously, and available. Your committee should be meeting starting this week. So from now on, expect to have a committee meeting for the people who are on the docket in this meeting for appointment today. Just know that you will get put in a committee within the next week. So that's coming as well once we approve your appointments. And then during the judiciary co-chair's report today, they and Vivian will be giving a small presentation on Robert's rules and the legislative process. I know I gave you guys a crash course when we voted on our first piece of legislation, but this is a more comprehensive just overlook of what our processes look like. So that is coming in a few minutes. So that's all from me. Does anyone have any questions? All right, if there are no questions, we can move on to Victoria's report.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria Parker. I'm the treasurer for those of you that are new. So SBAC stands for Student Budget Advisory Committee. Those are picking up speed. So we had pretty much a full time today, our hour and a half meeting, which was exciting. And I realize this isn't on my slide, but since there are some new people, just to keep in mind as your committees start meeting, don't spend any money without talking to your co-chair of your committee, and that co-chair will talk to me, especially just with COVID and the new guidelines. We just want to be really sure. I would hate for you to spend money and then not be able to be reimbursed. So just please check with your co-chairs before you spend any money.
Does anyone have any questions for Victoria? All right, moving on then to Caroline's report.
Hi, I'm Caroline Walker. I'm the secretary. For those of you who are new to Senate, we have a student government retreat every year to welcome in the new members, and the freshman senators who will be elected next week will also be at the retreat. And it's just to start building connections among student government members and really work on team building exercises and just allow you to meet people and get acclimated to the processes of Senate. So the SG retreat this year will be Sunday, September 27th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So go to mark your calendars for that. It will be mandatory unless you have an excuse. So just please try to come. It's really not that long. It will be in person on Davis Field, so that's really exciting. And there will also be a box lunch served, so I'll send out a dietary needs form if you haven't filled that out yet. Also, the SG calendar, which I'll add the new pupil to later, has been updated. It includes your weekly committee meetings and then an excuse form if you're ever unable to attend a committee meeting or Senate. In addition to that, I also updated the SG Lag Google group. So you should get emails from that. I sent out a test earlier. So if you didn't get that test, please let me know. And then also for new people, we're starting SG Socials, which is where you can sign up through a form to be paired with somebody new each week in Senate. And then you can just try to like get to know them better, like over a meal or just like get together or like Zoom or phone call, whatever. So if you're interested, I'll send out the Google form in the group chat after Senate.
All right, thank you, Caroline. Does anyone have questions for Caroline's report? All right, Drew.
Well, good evening. My name is Drew Skelton, and I'm the Chief of Staff. So just two quick things. Today, we'll be voting on a bill for Senate appointments, but more on that later. And like Miles said, we have meetings this week regarding PLC. Just helping plan that, which is coming up. But that is it for me.
Does anyone have any questions for Drew's report? All right, then we will move on to Tim's report. Tim. 1 second. All right, we will give it 1 second. I will move on to the
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I am on the phone with Dean Goldstein, so I will be back. Nothing's wrong.
Okay, we will move on to committee reports then. And then you can loop back. So academic.
Hey everyone. So we had an interesting week last week. On Wednesday, we met with people in ODOC, the Office of Dean of College. And we had a very nice and fruitful discussion with Dean Marsh and Ellie Bregan. So we went through a lot of stuff, some of the main points, and some of this comes from a follow-up meeting we had on Friday, that the college is going to look at randomly testing staff and faculty, especially those who are at a higher risk or have a lot of contact with students. So like people that work in the pit and facilities and stuff like that would be part of that like high contact group. Residence Life and Housing is also going to start looking into having better signage and more information around campus about certain regulations, because there's a lot of unclarity surrounding how we're supposed to act in our dorms and stuff like that. We also had a long discussion about how to keep students engaged with COVID protocols and stop people from kind of like getting too comfortable with it and then starting to ease up on the rules, because we've already seen a little bit of a spike in cases. We talked about the changes that were coming to the dashboard, and there was one change this week. I hope you all saw that, and they're going to try to bring more information on there. They just want to be careful about how they do it, because that is a public website and they don't want to put too much information to the point where it can be misconstrued. We also entertain the idea of being able to publicize what's happening to students who break COVID regulations. We think potentially, if it's allowed, they're looking into it with legal to see if we can actually do it. But we think if we could say like what's actually happening to students who break these rules, people will be more enticed to follow them. We're also working with physical planning to change DSR hours. So we got an email back today. We're going to try to set up a time to meet with them either this week or next week. So hopefully we'll be able to get better hours in the library. And Ava and I also have a meeting with the Office of Academic Advising about Major Minor Fair this week. Ava, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, the other thing is that we're meeting with DNI to have an SAAC meeting later this week.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. Does anyone have any questions for academic? Okay, and just to clarify on Ava's last points, SAAC is the Student Athletes Advisory Council. Moving on to our next committee, Campus Life.
Yeah, so last week we had our first year in focus orientation, which is our mentorship project that we've been working on. It was a success. We had a lot of upperclassmen come in as mentors and a lot of freshmen be mentees. So that was really exciting to get started with that. We're still working on catching up a few of the people who missed the meeting and still want to participate as mentors or mentees, but that's pretty much it with that. And our first committee meeting is tomorrow night at 4 p.m.
Annie, anything to add?
Nope, that's it.
All right, any questions for Campus Life? All right, moving on to diversity and inclusion.
So we just had our Dr. V check-in for this month, and it was just mostly about moving on with the President's Commission and moving into phase 2 at the end of this month or the beginning of next month. Was just he's making some working groups to work on some of those like projects that he mentioned that were mentioned in the President's Commission report.
Anything to add, Uma?
Yeah, and just adding on to what Pilar said, that Dr. V was considering attending our PLC, and he will talk about one of the topics regarding to DNI and conflict resolutions.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. Does anyone have questions for DNI? All right, we will move on then to judiciary.
Hi, everyone. So this week we introduced a new idea to work on a new archival review process. Basically that involved just looking over existing precedent that we have on hand and logging it for future records. The Judiciary Committee will be working on that in the coming weeks and likely throughout the semester. We are continuing to review processes. Tonight, as previously mentioned, we are introducing legislation in the coming weeks. So once we finish our deliberations, that will be coming to the Senate. Tonight, we'll show our government fundamentals PowerPoint that'll go over process and basic Robert's Rules of Order, among other things. The Senatorial Appointment Committee finished its interviews this week, and then we are continuing our commitment with the Code of Conduct project.
Sebastiano, have anything to add?
Yeah, our first meeting is tomorrow at 6.
Thank you, Sebastiano. Does anyone have any questions on this portion of Judiciary's report? Okay, then I'm going to stop share and I'm going to share the screen for their presentation really quickly on Robert's rules and such. So give me 1 second.
Okay, so this PowerPoint is an overview of the legislative process, Robert's rules, and a little bit on our governing documents. So to begin, just an overview of what we'll be covering. First, we'll talk about the legislative process and how to introduce legislation and ultimately how to get it approved. From there, Vivian, our parliamentarian, will talk about Robert's Rules of Order and how to make a motion. And then finally, Sebastiano will talk about our governing documents very briefly. So to begin, here's a little bit about the legislative process. If you would like to write legislation, be it a bill or resolution, you first want to think of a proposal. You're going to want to review the checklist that we've included on the following slide, which we'll show in a minute. And then once you have the necessary support, once you've gone to the checklist and made sure that your proposal is finalized, you'll want to ask the judiciary for the template for your legislation. From there, we'll work with you to get you that template, and then you and your committee will work on the legislation you want to get passed. Once you finalize your legislation, you'll send it to us at the Judiciary Committee. From there, we will review and debate that legislation as we see fit. We'll check for the constitutionality of your legislation. We will review the accuracy of your legislation and ultimately make a referral based on whether or not we believe it is ready for the speaker and the parliamentarian. From there, the speaker and the parliamentarian will conduct their own review. They'll also review our judgment concerning constitutionality and accuracy. From there, they will either submit it to the Senate for consideration, or they will refer it back to us or to the Committee of Origin. Finally, it'll come to the Senate if it is approved by the speaker and parliamentarian. From there, it'll be added to our Senate agenda for Tuesday or the next session. That will allow us to debate the legislation in session. And then your legislation will either pass or fail. And then that'll be that. So going on to the checklist that we've included on the next slide. These are the basic guidelines to enact effective change. This is the guidelines that I would recommend following, as it will be the guidelines that we will review your legislation by in committee. The first thing you're going to want to check off your checklist when writing legislation is to make sure that you have the approval of the relevant parties, be it your committee, administration, or campus organizations. From there, you'll want to make sure that you have the necessary co-sponsorship or member support. That way your bill or resolution isn't just dying in committee and doesn't have the necessary support to get passed to the Senate. Next, you'll want to check for inaccuracies. Make sure if you list any facts that they are accurate and pertain to the resolution or bill that you have introduced. We will also check this just to make sure that everything is up to date. So be aware of that. The fourth thing you're going to want to check is if you invoke the administration. What that means essentially is that if you call on the administration to work with you, if you call on the administration in regards to certain processes that they have, you'll want to make sure that you have double checked the accuracy of that process or of the administration that you've invoked, and make sure that they are on board with you doing that. So we don't want to essentially surprise the administration last minute about you introducing legislation that concerns to their affairs. And then finally, the constitutionality of your legislation. Make sure it follows our governing documents and that it's not in conflict with any provisions therein. That's a little bit about the legislative process. I'll hand it over to Vivian to talk about Robert's Rules of Order.
Hey guys. So I'm going to be telling you about Robert's Rules, and the first thing that's important is how to get the floor, how to speak. So generally, a member would raise their hand when no one else has the floor, and the chair will recognize the member by name. But for purposes of our Zoom Senate, Ali said before that, when the floor is open, then you can unmute and say something, and that's okay as long as you're not interrupting another person, and that counts as recognition. Additionally, nothing goes to discussion without a motion being on the floor. So in the absence of a motion, the chair maintains the floor, and that is Ali as Speaker of the House. The chair in this instance and throughout Robert's Rules of Order just refers to the person leading the meeting. So as Speaker of the House, that's always Ali during Senate. So the chair maintains the floor in the absence of a motion unless they cede the floor to another speaker. So to make a motion, you would say, I move that, or to, and then you would say what motion you want to make. Then another member will second the motion, and then the chair, Ali, would state that motion. And in general, that part, are you ready for the question, only applies if the member is making a main motion. That means that someone is bringing new business to the floor of Senate. So once a motion has been brought up, Members can debate most motions. Before speaking in debate, members must obtain the floor. Don't interrupt anyone. The maker of the motion can have the right to the floor as long as they claim it properly. Debate has to be confined only to the merits of that specific motion. And debate is closed only by a 2/3 vote of the assembly or by the chair if the debate has clearly reached a conclusion. And then the chair puts the question to a vote and the result of the vote is announced. Whenever you're debating your motions, I just want to remind everyone that you should listen to the other side, focus on issues and not on personalities. You should also avoid questioning motives and just be polite to each other. So a main motion is what a member, which is like any senator, would bring to the floor when they want to propose a new idea or any sort of new business. So you would just say, Madam Speaker, I move that, and then whatever your motion is. Another type of motion is amending. This happens if you want to change the wording of something being discussed. The most common example probably being a bill or resolution that is currently in debate. So you would say, Madam Speaker, I move that the motion be amended by adding or striking the following words, or by striking the following words and adding these words in their place. If you want debate to end and you think it's gone on too long or you just want to go ahead and vote, you can move the previous question. This motion has to be seconded and receive a 2/3 vote in the affirmative for it to move to a vote. You can also move to limit or extend debate. If you think that the discussion is going on for too long, you can say, Madam Speaker, I move to limit debate and then give a parameter. Or if you think that whatever is being debated needs further consideration and to be talked about longer, you can say, Madam Speaker, I move to extend discussion for however long. You can also motion to recess by saying, I move to recess for this amount of time. And with adjournment, you can motion to adjourn by saying, Madam Speaker, I move to adjourn. And that is only in order after all of the items on the agenda have been completed. Like you can't motion to adjourn during committee reports, for example. And you can also call for orders of the day. Basically what this means is that if Allie's not following the order of the agenda, you can interrupt her and you can say, call for orders of the day, but this motion can be overturned by a 2/3 vote if everyone else thinks that it's fine that you're not following the agenda. You can also motion to suspend the rules. The most common example of this is if you want to move an item on the agenda up because you're afraid that the assembly won't get to all of the items on the agenda in the meeting. So you would say, Madam Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and do this. You can also motion to question of privilege. This is just a logistical concern concerning the assembly primarily. So the example that I gave is you could say question of privilege, and then Allie would say, state your point. And this example applies to physical meetings much more than virtual ones, but a member could say there's too much noise if you're in a physical meeting and it's super noisy and you can't hear the meeting. And the chair rules on this, so Allie would make a decision. Questions of personal privilege also exist, but that is something that's like incredibly rare and just would refer to like if your attendance was taken down incorrectly. And that's not something like a question of personal privilege is rarely urgent enough to be something that you can interrupt the meeting for, but you can interrupt a meeting for a question of privilege relating to the assembly that's urgent, like if no one can hear. A point of order is something a member would bring up if the meeting's not following the rules. You can interrupt and say point of order if you think that people aren't following the rules and you want them to. And the last one I have is a point of information or a request for information. It's the same thing. There are two different titles. This is just a request to Allie for more information relating to the business that you're talking about. And then Allie can defer it to another officer or member if they have more information. And a parliamentary inquiry is a very closely related motion that you can also make. And the only difference is that I would most likely be the one to answer that question as the parliamentarian. And that's all. Those are the basics. Thanks.
So now we'll go briefly over the governing docs. And yes, so the Constitution and all the other governing docs as well as legislation are present on the SG website. So make sure you familiarize yourself with that page. However, the Constitution has 9 articles. Highlighted are some relevant things that we wish to share with you tonight. Article 1 kind of goes over the officers of the legislature, kind of goes over who are exec members and trustees, oversight record. Article 2 talks about the meetings, and this is kind of your time commitment as a senator and how attendance works and your absences. Legislative branch is the Senate, so you are part of that now. Welcome. Speaking before legislator is what Article 3 goes over. Again, pretty basic stuff.
And that's in the bylaws, just to clarify.
Okay. Article 4 is voting. Important thing is that you must be present to vote and that there is a voting record. So what you vote yes or no or abstain from, there's a record of that. So keep that in mind. The bylaws also go over the quorum, which is half of the Senate plus 1. Also expulsion from the legislature, which is rare, but keep that in mind when you're being absent. More than 3 can cause this to happen. And here are some contact information of judiciary co-chairs and the parliamentarian. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to contact us. And of course, please visit the student government website and familiarize yourself with that page. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian, Sebastiano, and Ethan. That was great. Does anyone have any questions right now on that PowerPoint, other than the fact that we will share it with the minutes? Awesome. And so for those of you who are voting today for the first time, perhaps just keep in mind that we will be using some of these tools this evening. I'm going to share the rest of our committee reports now so that we can just finish those off. And we will move on from there. So moving on to PR.
So we made a post today as a reminder that the election packet was due, and we're also still reposting from other accounts. We don't have a lot of going on this week, but please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or you want a graphic made.
Anything else, Jess?
Nope, that sounds about good. Thanks.
All right, any questions for PR? All right, moving on to physical planning.
Hey everyone. Okay, first of all, can y'all hear me? I'm in Vincent right now.
You're good.
So okay, perfect. So we have a bunch of things going on. Our constituent concerns, per usual. The feral swing that was down is already on its way to be fixed. And we've taken care of some wakeline concerns. I think I went over that last week, so that's in the past. We're meeting with Mr. Wise about deacon dining this coming Tuesday. So if y'all have any questions, any concerns about that, let me know and I'll discuss it. And we're also working with academic to address the funky hours in the library. So we'll get back to y'all after we set up a meeting in the near future. Also, I added a little a GIF. Can we fix it? Physical planning sure can. So excited for the new senators. Meredith, do you have anything else?
Yeah, so for the water in Collins, the maintenance people won't help anymore because we didn't have a specific location. Like the constituent concern that came with it never said like what floor or hall the hot water wasn't working. So unfortunately we aren't able to help that any further.
All right, thank you, physical planning. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, then moving on to SOC.
What's up, guys? I'm Rory, if you're new. So one of the things we're doing is that we are finalizing the survey to send out to the leaders of student organizations. We've got the language down. We're getting the form all figured out, and we will have this ready to send out by the end of the week. So if anyone's asking you about that, tell them to get ready.
Yeah, and we're getting the official SOC email back, which is very exciting because it's been a couple of years in the making. I think that's about it.
All right, any questions for SOC? Okay, then I am going to move away from the set agenda so that we can loop back to Tim's report if no one has any objections to that. All right, then Tim, you can go ahead.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Good evening, everybody.
Tim.
Gabe, do I see Gabe? Gabe's back. How's everybody doing?
Hi, Tim.
Good to see you, buddy.
Nice to see you too.
Sorry, I was on the phone. Dean Goldstein called and I had to deal with something. Nothing. He was not. He said I threw him under the bus. I told him I would swear that student governor understood it was not something serious. Serious enough that I had to. I know I'm coming in late tonight, so I just have two questions as opposed to real reports. So I'm interested in perspectives. As you know, student engagement is working through the never-ending battle of trying to figure out more things for students to do while we deal with COVID-19. So most of you know we did watch parties last week for the Wake Clemson game. We did them around campus in most of our tented areas. We decided to focus on first-year students, and the 198 spots went in about 4 minutes, but only about half of the students ended up showing up, which is not a complete surprise. We are trying to figure out, I think we're going to think about doing some sort of watch party for every home football game this year, but we are trying to figure out the right way to do it. Right now, we're contemplating the idea of focusing around the Manchester Plaza area. We're working with dining to see if the tents are available. Obviously, a lot depends on the time of the games. We're trying to find the combination of how to invite first-year students as well as invite some upper-class students. We realize a lot of upper-class students will use other options, which is totally okay under safe circumstances. But I'm just interested in perspectives. For example, people have said to us, you know, if you have 25 people for a tent, just make it first come, first serve. We know from a safety perspective, we can't do that because we don't need lines or crowds. So I'm just interested in your perspective. What do you think we should be looking at to get students to show up to watch parties on Manchester Plaza for football games? And with that, I open the floor.
If you want to just, come off mute, and if people start talking over each other, then I'll do it a different way.
I have a question.
Yes,
So right now, like people are signing up and then it gets full and then people aren't showing up. Is there a penalty for not showing up? Like you can't sign up again in the future? I just feel like that's discounting people that the same thing happened with the ice cream event that Panhandle tried to do, but it's just like there might have been people that would have actually come.
Yes, you're right. And that's part of, we've not talked about penalizing, but I hear what you're saying. We're trying to figure out how to, and it was the first time we had done it, and we only had about 4 days to think it through. So we decided to give it to Res Life, and they opened it. So I hear what you're saying. I mean, I'm wondering if it's not penalizing, and I know what you're saying when you say penalizing them, but figuring out a way to help students understand, don't sign up unless you're committed to coming because we're investing resources into this. And other students, we know there were students who were disappointed they didn't get a spot. And because of COVID, we didn't want to give spots up because if the student showed up. So we're in kind of a weird place. So I like what you're saying, Victoria. I think just more about accountability, and I wouldn't use accountability, but about commit to this if you're gonna sign up for it. And then moving forward, if you don't show up, maybe we'll take it from you. But I think that makes some sense. Other thoughts?
Could you have like a time constraint? So like if you're more than 15 minutes late, you lose your spot and then you give it to somebody who comes or something like that?
That's possible, because especially if we cut it down and focus, if we focus on the Manchester area with dining, we'll probably have about 100 spots for each watch party. So I think that could help. So that may be an idea. Marion agrees. I think so. Yeah. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I had a question. Right now, when people sign up, are they doing so individually or can you sign up like multiple people at once, like a friend group?
That's one of the pieces we're trying to figure out, because right now it was individually. We know that is a challenge because if your friend doesn't get in the same tent you are, you're probably not going to show up. We're trying to figure out whether we can do a version of that through the link, because we use the link for signups. So that's something we're playing around with.
Okay.
I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges we need to figure out. Thanks, Vivian. That's good feedback. Other thoughts? What would make you want, now I know a lot of you, I'm just going to say this and it's okay. A lot of you aren't going to come to a watch party because a lot of you have organizations and friend groups. But if you were looking for a reason to come to a watch party, what are some reasons you would want to go to a watch party?
I think I have an idea. Free t-shirt.
Free tea. We're working working with athletics to try to up the swag. Edna, yes,
Awesome.
free food. They had food. It was interesting. I think pasta salad may not be the way to go. We're going to try to simplify the food. I mean, University Events worked with catering to put together a nice little package that I think was a little more, I don't even know the right word, because I'm going to say, I don't want to say a little more adult because that sounds like I'm insulting, but you know what I mean. Like, we can figure out one slice pizza options, like single serve pizza options, yes. Wings, yes. Caroline, I saw you had your hand and I see Rory. So Rory, I'll come to you next. Caroline, go ahead.
I was going to say maybe having like games like cornhole or something like that. So it's not just like watching the football game, but also like those other social interactions. And like, I feel like that'd be pretty easy to set up through Campus Rec since they already have all their rentable games anyways.
We did have them out, but we're going to figure out how to highlight that and probably put some games in the actual tents. So maybe I'm not so much into football, but I just want to come hang out. So I think a combination of what you're saying, Caroline, yes, with a few more things may help. So thank you for that. Rory, Britt.
So I think something that might be good is if maybe you allow organizations to be able to use a specific tent for their thing. You know, I think a lot of organizations would love to have like 25 people be able to meet somewhere, especially if like it's a watch party. And if there's like catering and stuff, I think that can be great. Plus the accountability is a little bit higher because you can put it on the organization, not just 25 individuals.
And I think we're thinking about a combination of saving a couple areas for organizations and a couple areas for individual students. So I agree with that. That's something I think we definitely probably going to do for this watch party moving forward. Any other thoughts? All right, thank you all. There was another question I wanted to ask you, and honestly, as I'm sitting here, it's slipping my mind. So I will stop there for tonight. I appreciate the feedback, and we probably are going to be, oh, I know the other thing I wanted to ask you all was, so we're hearing more and more of the drive-in theater, which I don't know much about, I guess by the fairgrounds, where a lot of people watch the game this week, which is totally fine. One of the things we're trying to figure out is it worth looking into partnering with them on drive-in movies or other things like that. So I know part of the challenge would be for first-year students, but I see a lot of head nods. So thumbs up, that's a partnership we should look into for drive-in movies and whatnot. I see some double thumbs up. So the fact that we're getting double thumbs up, yes. All right, so that's something we're going to start looking into. Thank you all. I appreciate it. That is all I have for the night.
Victoria, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, I know that there are several Greek organizations that are working on like having an event there. So I feel like that is something that people would go to.
Yeah, we just started talking about it this morning. So we're going to look into it and reach out to them. So those of you who are part of the building community team, we're probably going to talk about these things.
Did anyone else have any questions for Tim's report?
Just like a quick comment. It's kind of like what Rory said. I think it'd be a really good idea if you wanted to like promote the like watch parties to student organizations. And so maybe you could have like 10 people from the organization show up and then have like 15 for freshmen. And so maybe even if you could align it like that, where like, I'm interested in this, whatever it may be, like fraternity, intramural sport, something like that. And so then they could like learn about that and like watch the game together.
Yep. No, Brooke, I think you're spot on. I mean, we're definitely going to do some sort of combination of organization. And we're originally going to do organizational stuff for Clemson, but then we decided let's open it to the first year students because we knew they didn't have a place to go. But I think some sort of hybrid version is definitely what we're going to do moving forward. And in our meeting tomorrow when we debrief, that's one of the things we're going to talk about. So it'll definitely be some sort of combination.
Any other questions for Tim? All right, then thank you, Tim.
Thanks all.
And we are now going to move on to new business. And the new business is Senate Bill 3, which is the vote to approve the appointments of our newest, hopefully, senators, which means I have to put you all in a waiting room, and then we will bring you back into the Senate meeting after we vote on the resolution. So I'm going to do that for like 2 seconds really quick. Just hang out, and then you'll be back in a few. Sorry if it takes me a second. I have to do them one by one. Okay, do I have anyone in here who's not supposed to be in here still? Then I will share screen. Could I please have the sponsor of this bill read it in its entirety? Drew.
Yes, Senate Bill 3 approving the nominations of Senatorial Appointment Committee. Be it enacted by the Senate of the Wake Forest Student Government here assembled. Section 1, the Student Government Senate approves the appointment of the following students to the position of Senator: Sarah Dalton, James Camp, Nancy Walker-Wright, Vivian Boland, Nick Briggs, Will Harness, Rachel Edwards, and Dana Hindi. Section 2, this bill shall take effect immediately. Respectfully submitted, Drew Skelton, Chief. Just real quick, after reading all their applications and interviews along with the 2 judiciary co-chairs, we all feel they're going to make great senators. So yeah.
Thank you, Drew. We will now, just a reminder, guys, since we haven't voted in a couple weeks, there are 2 kinds of ways we're going to vote. One of them is Caroline will call your name. That is what we will vote at the end when we vote whether to pass this or not. And your choices for that are abstention, aye, or nay. There's the voice call vote, which is how we will raise our hand, and that is what we will do when / if someone motions to end debate or discussion and move to the previous question, and that will require you to raise your hand, and we will do the counts. So with this, I'm going to ask if there are any questions for Drew, and I will allocate 2 minutes for this.
Motion to move the question.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Those in favor, please raise your hands using the raise hand function. Everyone does have to vote on this, so please.
You find it by going to participants, clicking it, and then clicking raise hand.
When Caroline has a count, I will lower all your hands, so please don't lower your hand. All right, I'm going to lower all hands. Can I have those opposed, please raise your hand. All right, it looks like the ayes have it. So we will move on to a vote on the legislation, and Caroline will do that with a roll call.
Okay, Ethan,
Aye.
Mariama, Mariama, she's not here. Okay. Marion,
Yes.
Uma,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Ava,
Yes. Yes.
Gabe,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Edna, Edna.
Yes.
Okay. Sebastiano,
Aye.
Tanya,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Meredith,
Yes.
Kanisha,
Yes.
Caroline, okay. Gabby,
Yes.
Braden,
Aye.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Pilar,
Yes.
Brooke,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
Robbie,
Aye.
Dave,
Yes.
Rory,
Aye.
Isaiah.
Yes.
Okay.
The bill passes unanimously. Awesome. So I'm going to admit them back into the meeting. Welcome back, everyone. I just want to let you guys know that it passed unanimously. So welcome. You're all now senators. Yay. Round of applause. So that's exciting. You'll get to vote on the next pieces of legislation and all that good stuff. And you should expect from me in the next day or so an email so that you can get placed in a committee. We will now then move on to the last three pieces of our agenda. So Senate reports. Does anyone have an individual senator report? Constituent concerns? Okay, if you do come up with a constituent concern, reach out to the co-chairs that are meeting with the offices in the next week or so. I believe that is Mr. Wise with Deacon Dining for this week. But don't forget to do that if you end up with a concern. Announcements. Does anyone have an announcement for our newest senators that is like, I'm in DZ and DZ is doing this and you guys should all do it? For example. Dave, yeah, what's up?
So Dating Deacons is going in full swing. Please sign up. We have matched countless couples on campus, and we highly recommend you to join it and meet people. It's fun. And only $3.
And it's for a good cause. Any other announcements?
Campus garden hours are 5 to 7 every day. I lead campus garden hours from 5 to 7 on Fridays. It's the weekend, so you don't really have any excuses. So it's really fun. I encourage you to come out.
Any other announcements?
Does it have to be school related?
I guess not. I don't really know.
Okay, I just wanted to share that the organization that I'm interning for is having an open speaker series tomorrow about the free speech crackdown in Belarus. It's hosted by PEN America, which is in New York City. So if anyone is interested in listening in at 6 p.m. tomorrow, message me and I'll message you the link. Thank you.
Any last announcements?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Those in favor, raise your hand with the raise hand function in the participants thing. Everyone does have to vote, so. Okay, those opposed, I'm gonna just say, speak if you are opposed. No. Okay, y'all are free to go. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you
Congrats,
all
Senator.
soon.